This program was made possible in part by S.C. Johnson Wax and Curtin Medical Group.
In Russia, they do not have the machinery, the equipment. They don't have the medications that we have. I just heard from our Russian colleagues that practically half of what they need can they get.
One nurse told me that the hospital, she works in a 1,200-bed pediatric hospital, one of the nurses there inadvertently and unknowingly had given the AIDS virus to 15 children by injecting them with a dirty needle. And she had no way of knowing, but she had no choice. The needles, unfortunately, have to be used over and over and over again because they don't have any. And they have to make a choice between not giving the medicine or giving it and taking the chance that they could be transferring some kind of infectious disease. They have no equipment, no supplies, and the staff is extremely dedicated and knowledgeable, and they know what they're supposed to be doing. They know how to prevent infection, but they have nothing to do it with.
I guess the word that comes to my mind is frustration, enormous frustration. They cannot get food, they can't get medicine for their children, they can't get even just staples, things that are necessary for life.
On January 31st, 1992, 14 Russian nurses and one interpreter came to southeastern Wisconsin. They were met by nurses from 6 hospitals and clinics in the area. These American nurses were prepared to take on the role of educators. They expected to teach their visitors ways to improve the Russian healthcare system. But what they didn't expect was to learn so much about themselves.
In the late 50s, where people were building bomb shelters because the Russians might attack. And we were taught to fear the Russians.
The visit by the Russian nurses is part of an exchange program made possible by the U.S.-Russia Nurse Exchange Consortium. The consortium was founded on the belief that nursing is the international language of caring, and that if nurses throughout the world are united, the health and welfare of all people will improve. The group was led by Larissa Svirenko, chief nurse of Russia.
I'm very, very grateful to the consortium who invited our nurses here. And this is only the beginning. Maybe when our nurses, Soviet nurses, see the work of your nurses here, they can bring something, if not in the technology, but in their hearts. So they will help to improve the situation in our country.
And I will show you a strip of the patient's heart rate.
The healthcare system is experiencing such a crisis that something has to be better. Now, we know that the system in the United States is not at all perfect, but Larissa Svirenko, the chief nurse of Russia, is definitely looking toward the United States because she's looking at our healthcare system from a nursing point of view.
I'm not a politician, I'm a nurse. And what I see here, the work of nurses, I like it very much.
I've heard over and over and over again Our patients deserve this. The Russian people deserve this.
This is Valiant. She's from Russia.
The conditions of work of our nurses are very hard in comparison with yours, I should say. Each nurse must serve about 25-30 patients. They clean the floors, they clean the patients, wash them, the patients. And we don't have enough disposable things. So they must clean all the medical equipment. Our nurses are very busy during their daytime. They don't have much time to talk to patients. We are trying our best to provide comfort for each patient. We are trying our best to do everything for him and for him to be healthy.
The number one ingredient, the number one thing that's so important with nursing is caring. And to see that and to evaluate that and to promote that, well, that's nursing, that's worldwide. That's what we believe in too. So we're all the same. You know, it's taking care of that patient in the best possible way that we can.
I think nurses around the world are the same. Nurses have to have something special about them in order to take on that profession.
Let's go up for our operation with Dr. Brockman this morning. Here, let's get.
I truly do believe that nursing is the international language of caring.
With the aspiration, did you want a syringe or you want the suction hookup?
Syringe is fine.
Okay.
When I draw the blood gas, you can let me know if the procedure you use is the same as ours or if you do something a little bit different.
I've learned an awful lot about Russian nursing and how hard they work. She chose to be a nurse. As hard as she has to work and as long as the hours are, she's very dedicated in that they all are.
And then use a 2x2 just to keep my syringes sterile.
I love to help people. I think that I'm a rather sharing person. That's why I decided to become a nurse, and I love my profession. I never regretted about my choice.
This is the normal pancreas then, where the duct has fused and it's all one duct. Right, right. And here's
The word sistra is nurse, and it's the word sister, and that I think is a real bond that we are sisters.
See how the needle, the bevel points up? You always want to make sure you have it up.
By my character, I'm a dreamer, and but I never dreamt of being in a country like this. It was and it is like a fairy tale for me. I am very, very happy here.
Here, just tell it what we want to run. Tell it what test we wanted to run. There's 2 copies of everything we do, one for the doctors and one for us to keep. And it all comes off. It runs 20 different
Let's
tests.
say, for instance, there's a potential problem, a neurological problem with a patient. The physicians here may just say, well, let's just check it. Let's utilize the MRI and the equipment that we have, and the person would be diagnosed perhaps with the equipment, with the aid of the equipment.
These are the heart monitors. Carl is the technician. He watches the monitors, and each patient has their own, and each one has their heart. Now, Bernice is in room 213. This is Bernice's heart rhythm. Okay, and that's what that heart monitor is for. Okay, okay.
Electrocardiogram.
In Russia, they cannot rely on that kind of high-level diagnostic equipment. They just don't have it available. And so those skills are finely tuned. The assessment, listening to lungs, listening to, you know, what's happening with the brain, watching and looking at your patient in a way you really know what's going on inside the body without the technology.
Well, sometimes our nurses and our doctors work only with the help of their hands. But their hands are wonderful. They treat with their hands sometimes.
We're going to get an x-ray of your neck before we take this collar off, okay? And we're going to keep you on this long board, too. And I'll be back to check you.
That's pretty much all we do from here. We just let them sit. We'll put the side rails up. Okay. Keep your chin up.
Did you want to take a listen? Okay.
Tachycardia?
Yes.
Okay. All that technology may not be necessary, and perhaps sometimes we lean on it too much.
You're being good, Andy. It's taking a minute here.
What is it? You're doing an ultrasound on the baby to check his head to see if there's any bleeding in his head at all. Premature babies sometimes do get bleeding in their head, so we have to make sure that it's okay. And usually they are okay.
We do blood gases on this analyzer here. This is a TDX. We do our TDMs on that and our thyroid function tests. On this analyzer, we have state-of-the-art
Thermostat?
MEIA, a stat analyzer.
Nurses from around the countries and around the world can share what they know and what they know works for patients. And I think we're always learning something different and something new. And there's a lot of technologies that we're not aware of in the United States or that we don't subscribe to. For instance, massage therapy. Many of the nurses in Russia use massage as a type of therapy to for relaxation and for pain relief. Also, a therapy that's called contactless massage, where only certain people, certain individuals are able to do this because it requires intensive training. But if there's something wrong with you, if you have a headache or a stomach ache or an earache or toothache, whatever, by using contactless massage, they encircle the area that is painful and they heal it somehow. I had it done to me when I was in Leningrad. I had an earache and a sore throat, and Larissa told me that she would heal me. She would come to my room and heal me. She did come that evening to my room, and she had me seated in a chair, and she took all of her jewelry off her hands, and she began this, and the room was totally silent, and she began to encircle my head but never touched me. And at one point she asked me if I felt any heat in one place more so than another. And I did. I felt very warm on this side of my face and my head, very warm. And she said, well, then your pain must be concentrated here. And that was the truth. That's where I had the earache and my glands were swollen. And she did this for a while, and she encircled my body with her hands. And at the end of the treatment, I have to honestly say that my pain was gone. So I guess there is some merit, and I'm the biggest skeptic of all. You know, I believe in medicine for everything, but I think that's one big thing we can learn. Traditional medicines.
I can feel that.
Really?
Yes. It feels like static electricity or something. I feel, I don't know what it is, I feel it though. It's good.
Maybe we don't need to depend on medicines that much. Maybe we could look at some of these traditional methods of healings.
I could feel something. No, even like you could feel that. Good. Okay.
The Russian government has, even though their economy is collapsing, even though things are so desperate over there, they have decided absolutely that they're going to support this. They have provided our consortium with a document that says no matter what, we want this exchange. We want the nurses to be received by us, and we want to be able to send nurses because that's what is going to improve nursing and healthcare in our country, is the sharing of knowledge.
I don't understand.
The exchange program is so important because it's nurses working together side by side and sharing. They need contact. We need to work together side by side, face to face, arm in arm, hand in hand, and teach each other.
It's one thing to hand someone a piece of bread. It's another thing to show them how to grow the wheat.
You shop magazine. You shop.
Wants us all to go shopping? Magazine? Go shopping? Magazine?
Sale.
People are people all over the world, and it's just the only barrier is language. We both have books, and when we don't understand a word, we both take our books out and we look at the word and then we say it. Book.
Book.
Mm-hmm. See?
Book, see and say.
And what else do? We shop till we...
Shop until drop. You tend to look at it then from her viewpoint. We have so much. Sometimes it almost looks like an excess, and you have this feeling of discomfort because we have so much and we don't really recognize it. And when someone comes who has so little, you begin to see it differently.
If you ever had a chance to see what's available to them and to go into their stores and to go into their homes and see how they have to live compared to how we live, and the hardships they have to endure day after day after day. But they're very generous people. If they have nothing else to give and they want to give you a gift, because that is a great honor to be able to present a gift to someone who they feel are your friends, there's no doubt in my mind that they would give you their wedding ring.
And I would like to pass this to you.
And they don't get paid hardly anything. A physician in Russia will earn probably the equivalent of enough to buy 10 pounds of sausage for one whole month. And a nurse, I heard that the average salary for a nurse is enough to buy a pair of shoes. The salary for a whole month of work. One physician that I spoke with said, you know, in Russia, if you work very, very hard, you have no money. He said, if you work medium, he said, you have no money. If you don't work at all, you have no money. It's all the same. The difference between hard currency in Russia is startling. If you buy something with American dollars, as compared to buying something with rubles, rubles are practically worthless. And these people have saved and saved and saved their life earnings, and it's hardly anything. And right now, the official rate of exchange is 125 rubles per dollar.
If another type of currency was developed, they'll be able to purchase medicines. Our nurses that are visiting us today, they believe that currency is going to be developed very soon. They're passing out Russian rubles as souvenirs and telling people that these will be history in a very short time.
No idea if we can use these or not.
Unfortunately, the ruble is not recognized on the World Bank. It is not recognized as hard currency, so they can't pay for pharmaceuticals.
Let's say that the ruble will become a piece of currency that is exchangeable. Any of the problems will be solved. But if their ruble was exchangeable, or if another type of currency was developed, they'd be able to make these purchases. And our nurses that are visiting us today, they believe that that currency is going to be developed very soon. There's a transformation right now in healthcare. The state has sold these hospitals to private people, and so the hospitals and health clinics are becoming privatized. And what's happening here is, with the benefit of foreign currency, they're trying to attract joint ventures between foreign businesses to come into Russia and own one of these hospitals in conjunction with maybe, let's say, a Russian physician. And with the benefit of the foreign currency, they can purchase higher technology, they can purchase supplies which a regular hospital wouldn't have. And these hospitals will be available to people, let's say, private pay, the private sector.
Coagulation?
It's very complicated to imagine the many systems that are in place in a communist country. I was educated, I guess, once I was there and saw how different people lived. And for instance, the military men had a lot more privileges and lived better and were paid better and did not have to wait in line for hours and hours. And the common people have, poor housing, they're paid very poorly, they wait in endless lines. There's so many levels and stratas of people. One big priority was defense. I mean, every single man, when they turned 18, was inducted into the Soviet Army to protect the whole Soviet Union. I think Gorbachev is the person we have to look at as the man who really made history. Gorbachev gave the people a taste of freedom, and there's no turning back. The communists, the hardliners, as they are called, are really at risk, because with the fall of the communist government, these hardliners have lost their prestige. They've lost their first place in line for goods. They've lost their special treatment as far as medical care, possibly, and they've lost their high salary. So they have an awful lot to fight for. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if we're going to see, coup after coup, because these people really need to retain that power in order to retain their way of living. But the Russian people are not going to allow it. They're going to continue fighting. We saw it when they had the coup in August. We saw how they could have 500 tanks in Red Square. The Russian people were there ready to say, we're not going back. And healthcare will be affected, I believe. I think it's going to get better. The Russian people are going to demand it.
They're trying to implement something that has been unheard of and really condemned for 75 years. They're trying to establish a market economy. To do that, it's going to take time. In the interim, the people are hurting. They're hurting a lot. They have endured and lived through many, many hardships. Of course, one memory they all have, and it seems like every time you talk to someone, they will identify World War II. Over 20 million people were killed in World War II, and they remember that vividly like it was yesterday. They remember how a fourth of Leningrad was starved to death. That pain won't go away, but they endured it, and they survived it, and they say we can survive this too.
чтобы понять ситуацию, чтобы...
As maybe you have noticed already, we are optimists, and this is maybe the main thing which you could learn in our country, because we work hard, we work very hard. We hope that coming to our country, you'll learn to be optimists and to know how to survive through all the hardships. And maybe if your people know more right now about the life in other countries, it will help them to work harder and to help other people in your own country. And maybe the most important benefit for your people right now is lack of fear of our country, because when we were enemies, we were afraid of each other, and it's so wonderful that now your government, as our government, can spend much more money on social programs, not for military purposes.
I love you!
Funding for this program was provided by S.C. Johnson Wax and Curtin Medical Group.